Welcome everybody to Slow Art Friday. My name is Paige Taylor and I'm the Learning and Engagement Assistant here at the Asheville Art Museum. And today I am happy to be joined by Sylvie Horvath, our touring docent. Just as a reminder, microphones and video are muted by default. When you participate, please choose a quiet room and silence alerts from devices. Try not to sit in front of a strong light source so we can see you better. Use headphones and microphone for best sound quality. Use a desktop, laptop, or tablet for the best visual experience. And please make sure that your screen name includes your first name and last name, or your first name and last initial. To ask questions or make comments, you can unmute your microphones, type in the chat box, or raise your hand. And just a reminder, we are recording, so if you prefer not to be part of the recording, you are welcome to turn your videos off and turn your microphones off. Each Friday at 12 p.m., docents lead virtual interactive conversations about a few artworks in our collection or special exhibitions. The goal is simple: slow down, discover the joy of looking at art, and talk about the experience with others. For today's program, Sylvie will lead us in an interactive conversation about 3 artworks in our collection. We'll spend about 15 minutes or so with each artwork. Sylvie will allow us time to look at each work on our own, slowly, before leading a conversation about each one with questions. As participants, we encourage you to engage in dialogue with Sylvie, myself, and each other. And Sylvie, I did mute everyone at the beginning, so if you'd like to unmute yourself. Does anyone have any questions before Sylvie begins? Okay, Sylvie, what are we going to be talking about today?
Well, today I have chosen 3 artworks that have no people in them. Usually I choose artworks with people, and I thought this would be a nice change. We're going to spend about 15 minutes on each, and let's start with the first one. And let's take about 10 seconds to look at the whole artwork, top to bottom, side to side. Okay, what is going on in this artwork?
Well, I think it's pretty dramatic. I mean, there's obviously a fire, and so I don't think you'd want to have any people in this picture because of the fire. Although the way the white flames on the right and the left, the lamps, and they could almost be ghosts. Yes, they almost look like ghost-like to me.
Interesting observation that they almost look like ghosts. Anyone else want to comment on what they see?
Yeah, hi, Sil. It's Sharon.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi. Yeah, when I first saw it, it was like frightening. And I really thought I was seeing something incorrectly. And I thought, what's the white? And I said, it looks like the room's on fire, which is, of course, crazy. So I'm still questioning, is that the actual intent of this? And I guess the top looks like the smoke that you would expect, or the ash or whatever. So yeah, it's to me, it's a very distressing picture, because look at the beautiful things in the cabinet that would obviously get burned up, and the beautiful furnishings. And yeah, it's a very odd thing. You think of a painting as beauty, and this is just destruction and not a happy thing to look at.
Yeah. So you notice it's very distressing to you, and that the furniture is very beautiful, and you hate to see it destroyed.
But there's something very selective about the pieces that are in flame. Like there's one chair that's left untouched, and the table next to it, and the cabinet is not, in flames. I just wonder if that has anything to do with, the meaning of the painting. That the way the pieces are selected.
I agree with Ellen, and some of the pictures on the wall on the left are not on fire, and it doesn't look like the rug is totally consumed. And I'm fascinated by the shading and the color tones as well. The golds and oranges and whites and rusts, and I find that very interesting.
Even the flames are white, as opposed. I'm almost wondering, is it fire? There's no fire color to it. It's almost as if it's snow.
Yeah, it's so
snow
weird.
and a big cloud overhead.
Yeah, the fire is very interesting, as you say, and the furniture is very interesting also to a lot of you. Anyone else want to comment?
I really love the idea of the flames coming to life as ghosts, and I really appreciate her saying that, because then it turns it into, to me, a different picture of like in going to Disneyland, and those are all characters, and the black ceiling just makes it eerie, but it doesn't look destructive anymore. It just looks like Disneyland.
Barbara, did you have a comment to add?
Yeah, I did. I was going to say that it looks very staged, because maybe the whiteness on the furniture could possibly be some other material rather than. I'm in Sharon's house and we both have our machines on, so it's reverberating. But I think it feels like it's definitely staged. It doesn't feel like it's a real fire. And I don't think the photographer went into a burning house to take this picture. And the way some things are selectively not burning, I'm trying to understand what the artist is trying to tell us, because it seems that there is a selectivity to it with the pictures and the break front and some of the furniture, and the way that the fire is almost in a circle rather than being random.
We make choices. We pick and choose what we want to burn up.
A lot of you are noticing that it looks like it's staged, and it's very selective in which furniture is burning. The ghost, very interesting, because I never thought of that, and you can look at it that way as well. Yes. Any other comments on what you're seeing?
It could almost be Halloween, that type of environment or atmosphere to me.
Yeah. What makes you feel like it's Halloween in the environment and atmosphere?
Well, if you zoom in the cabinet a little bit, those almost look like little pumpkin dishes to me on the shelves inside the cabinet. It's hard to tell, but they look like candy dishes or pumpkin dishes. And the colors and the furnishings appear to be more winter than spring or summer to me, with the curtains and the fabric. So it just could be like an October evening to me.
When you zoom in, I'm glad you brought that up and zoomed in, because if you look at the window on the left, the ornament that is hanging, it looks as if it's blown off, as if it's being blown, and even though it is internal, and you can also see the reflection of the chair in the window on the outside.
Very interesting. Yes, yes. And some of you have mentioned the colors here. Anyone want to comment about the colors a little more in this artwork? Anything particularly attract you about the colors or the light?
The white is what stands out the most. with the exception of the white, everything is in a medium tone. And again, you know, with the oranges and the browns, there's almost a sense of being monochromatic, and the white is what's standing out. Unless maybe it's on my screen that it's white and other people are seeing it more fiery.
I'm seeing it as white. Raise your hand if you're seeing it as white as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, most of us are seeing it as white and very bright. Yes.
So then that's what it is.
I don't think that it doesn't look to me like real flames. There's something about it which is off, because if you see a picture of a beautiful, you know, campfire or something like that, it's the entire flame is not just white. So I don't know. There's something is very off about this.
That's what I thought too.
Well, you're leading me into my next question. Do you think this room is actually burning? Why or why not?
No.
I think it looks more iridescent.
I think it's almost snow-like.
It's got an iridescent, almost eerie quality to it, because something's on fire and the thing isn't on fire, which is kind of odd.
He really was. He was only like 4 foot 10 or something.
Well, any other
I thought it was
comments?
decorated very nicely.
Does it look like two photographs being put together, you know, one imposed on another, or does it look like one photograph to you?
It looks like almost the top part is blacked out as if it weren't fully developed.
But it's interesting on the shading too, because if you take the dark across the top, but if you come down on the left and down on the right, both on the bottoms there, it's almost, there's some dark also behind the couch and behind the other chair, almost as if it's like framing it in. And the light on the foreground on the wooden floor to me looks more like a shadow as opposed to a flame.
No.
Peter in the chat also agrees that it could be two photos.
And why do you think that?
Is this a photograph? I assume it's a photograph that's been doctored.
I will
Something.
I will tell you in a few minutes what it actually is.
Oh, okay. You can tell me now, Sylvie. I won't tell anybody.
Oh, Sharon, love your sense of humor.
All right.
Well, let me tell you that this actually is a real fire. And in addition, well, before I mention that, someone spoke about the shading and the way it's set up to look like a frame. And I thought that was a very good observation. I didn't notice that myself. I was very entranced by the shading, the lights and the darks. And it does look like, in a way, it is set up as a frame for the artwork. Well, let me tell you that this is actually a real fire. And something else very interesting is that this is not full-sized furniture. This is actually a miniature. And the artist here, Matthew Albanese, works with miniatures and this way. It's a digital C print on paper. The size is about 23 by 33 inches, which is about 2 by 3 feet, approximately. Something about the author. He was an only child and he enjoyed imaginative solitary play growing up. He loved miniatures and he would create scenarios with household objects and his collection of action figures at home. He went to art school and he worked as a fashion photographer, photographing bags, designer shoes, and accessories. And this has a specific name in fashion photography. It's known as tabletop photography. One day he spilled a canister of paprika. and it inspired him to create his first mini Mars landscape. So what he does, yes, what he does is he uses meticulous lighting and curation of tactile materials. It could be faux fur for grass, it could be cotton wool for clouds, it could be bottle brushes for shrubs. And he creates uncannily realistic scenes this way. The burning wood is made of wood, nylon, plexiglass, and purchased dollhouse furniture. A model was actually set on fire to achieve this effect. Any questions or comments?
That's fascinating.
Isn't it? Yeah. I'm so attracted by the colors in this and just the way it's set up.
It seems that because he did fashion photography, he learned how to use these other items to give the appearance of something else. It's very common in commercial photography. I think mashed potatoes are used to make things look like ice cream because it won't melt.
Yes, yes. Yes, many of us are familiar with how they set those things up, not using what they actually are. Especially with food,
and it seems like that's what he did here.
Yes, yes, and he's known for that. And his work appears in a lot of museums. Let's move on to the next.
Sylvie, one question.
Well, go ahead.
Did he, to get the black, it seems like it was not totally developed. That he was using film and he didn't totally develop the photo because of the way the black is on top.
It could be. I don't know how he did that. And obviously he did do some manipulation with the colors, as we can see, because the colors are not that true to life for a fire. So that's a possibility. Yes, I can't give you a definite answer, but it is a possibility. Any other comments before we move on? Okay, let's move on to the next artwork. Okay, and let's take 10 seconds to look at this carefully.
It's very Hopper-esque.
Okay, let's just wait for 10 seconds and look at it carefully, top to bottom, left to right. Okay, what is going on in this artwork?
As I said, it's very Hopper-esque. It reminds me of Edward Hopper.
And why do you say that?
Well, I guess his famous painting of the people sitting and not talking inside a diner, and it's something about it. The solemnity, I guess it's not even quite the right word, but the stillness of it, it just brought that painting to mind.
Very interesting, because now that you mentioned it, I can actually see those people in that bar grill. Yes, yes. Does anybody else want to comment on this?
Well, it looks abandoned to me, and I like the black and white, but I actually looked at it earlier where I could zoom in the two windows on the left and the right. And if you zoom in that circle on the left, it almost looks to me like there's a man and a woman, like a silhouette of a man and a woman in the window on the left. If it's hard to see, but it almost looks to me. And then on the right, it was kind of strange. The circle window looks like a flower and a wine glass. I don't know if anybody else can see that or sees that, and I don't know the significance of them, but it's just something I thought might be there.
Looks kind of like the glasses sandblasted with those designs in it or something.
That could be.
But
it could
that's
be.
a great observation of detail because I hadn't noticed that before.
Yeah, I hadn't either. That really is a very good observation.
Mm.
And also the shadowing of people possibly on the left is a very good observation because there might be life inside there. We don't know. Anybody else want to comment?
Or it seems like they're almost they're part of the glass, like they're sandblasted also because they're miniaturized silhouettes.
What do you mean? Inside? Can you elaborate on that a little with the miniaturized silhouettes?
Well, the silhouettes, you know, it looks like they're approximately the same size, maybe a little bit larger. They don't look like they are full figures, but they would, if they were real life size, only part of them would show. That's why it looks like they're actually, like you said, maybe sandblasted or painted on the glass, as opposed to being real figures.
So you think because of their size, it looks like they may be sandblasted on the glass as well.
Like they are on the right, the wine glass and the flower.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else want to comment on that?
Well, also I'm noting the curtains. And I forgot how they used to have curtains around the edges of the windows. I wonder how dirty those curtains are.
Yes, yes.
Plus, the
Go
geometric
ahead.
squares are very interesting. The use of the squares in the window on the left and the right of the door, the squares on the sidewalk, the squares above where there's no curtains in those if they're windows, and even higher, like everywhere there's like, I see squares.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he really captures a lot of geometry of this.
Yeah.
Even on the very edge of the photo, like a house or a building next door, the windows, the window frames.
Mm-hmm. Right, and there's some repetition there in the lines going down those square glass fronts there with the vertical.
Yeah, I think I was drawn in by the cafe itself, not so much, of course, the building above it, but just if you look at the cafe, the black and white and the symmetry of it. So the left and the right are identical to each other. And it's kind of an interesting looking little place that you feel drawn into kind of because of its, I don't know, the door kind of wants you to come in.
Barbara says in the chat it reminds her of the S&W building. It's very nostalgic of another time,
Right.
maybe Art Deco, and that it seems abandoned and sad.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. What about it reminds you of the S&W building, Barbara?
Well, I think it's reminiscent of that time, of the 30s architecture, the 20s architecture, even the block letters on the shapes. It's very reminiscent of that period of time. And because there's no one on the street and no people, it seems abandoned. And just like the S&W building, I can't wait till they open it because I want to go inside and observe what it looks like on the interior. I find it very inviting. I find it, I could hang this in my house. I would enjoy looking at it because it's I like the detail and the Art Deco. I used to love to go to Miami to the Art Deco buildings.
Yeah.
It's
And we're
interesting.
lucky to have so many of them here. The symmetry that you brought up, Sharon, I find very interesting also, because if we look just at the bar grill itself, it is symmetric. But then when we look at the whole artwork, it's a bit asymmetric. So, you know, that's very interesting also, the way the artist does that. Anyone else?
There's
There's
no
also-
number. No
There's
number.
also the, oh, I'm sorry.
I just say there's no number on the building. Like you don't know the address. You guess it's Market Street, but there's no number.
There's also the telephone wire going across the top of the photo.
Interesting. Yes, I did not
But
see
where
that.
is it? You
You
know,
can
it could
see
be
it starting
anywhere.
at the right on the top and it blends in, but then you see it and it sort of diagonals up slightly where it's going across the posts at the top of the building. And then it sort of disappears in the windows, but you can see it more on the left and very, very vaguely on the right, but it's something, it's another horizontal line that adds to the photo.
And do you notice anything, I guess I'm a former geometry teacher, do you notice anything about that line and any other line in the photo? Look at the
That one
side.
slightly, it goes, that one because it's a telephone line, it might have a little bit of sag in it. Well, the others are, very definitely straight because they're, buildings. They're blocks and they're stone and even in the sidewalk. But you know what? It mirrors actually, now that I look at it, it mirrors actually the line of the sidewalk into the street, the curb.
Yes, isn't it sort of parallel? If we remember back to high school and college, those parallel lines. He makes a lot of use of parallel lines in this work. Yes. If you had to picture people inside this structure, what would they look like?
The people from Edward Hopper.
I think
that thing is on my mind.
Well, the building definitely looks like it's from the 1950s or even earlier. Yeah, 30s, 40s, 50s.
30s, yeah.
flappers.
Yeah, I don't think that the little squares on each side of the doorway, I don't think that kind of glass is used anymore in buildings, and we think of it as the deco kind of style.
I think flappers would be coming out of the building. Flappers and gangsters.
Gangsters, oh. Anyone else?
They're coming out of it after a late night and now it's early morning. They've stopped for breakfast.
And because there's a bar, I wouldn't think you'd find children or very young people. I think it would be an older crowd.
I think if you're going in the same doorway, you have two choices to make. You're going to go to the bar or the grill or maybe the cafe, and it'd be different groups of people for different reasons.
Could be, yes, yes. Anyone else?
Well, what you've got me thinking about is it is so clean from the outside and the words are sparkling. I'm just thinking if it's abandoned, how did those words just stay alive after all these years? I don't think it's abandoned because it is too clean. And I would like to think it's kind of Art Deco and anybody goes in there to eat every day. I just don't know where it is. I think it could be anywhere, though I don't see it as a San Diego place.
I see it as New Orleans. I keep
New
thinking
Orleans?
New Orleans.
Chicago, for some reason I was going to say Chicago, or I know it's not New York, but and a place where it's mixed, it's in a mixed neighborhood because there's a house on the left, or it looks like a house, like a little bungalow next to it. Where if it were New York or Chicago or, it would be high rise, big buildings next to it.
I think it looks like New Orleans or, New Orleans. It has a little character to it or that feel to me.
Well, it's got that New Orleans feel to you.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in Brooklyn, and when I was young, I saw a lot of these places, and it reminded me of some of them because they were sort of neighborhood bars, and it was mostly men who were inside after work.
But
Sylvia, yes.
Would it have had a house like that next to it, even in Brooklyn?
Yeah, it might have. Well, I'm not saying that that's
Yeah.
Brooklyn,
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is that this was my impression when I first saw it, and I was wondering,
Yeah.
my first thought is seeing those men inside, you know, after work or after having dinner and then going out again, and just the men sitting there inside and having their beers and stuff and relaxing after work. So
You know,
let me.
I think this building may not be standing any longer. I think
Oh.
it might be
It
an old
may
building that's no longer there. It's a memory.
Yep.
I think it
Well-
has a sense of abandonment to me. And then in one of the cities, you know, a Rust Belt city or something that was once vibrant and now has diminished, you know, in terms of viability.
It's
Mm.
it's being razzed and it's abandoned and being ready to be razzed, and a high rise to be put in its place.
Sadly so, when I go back to the city. Yes, so many beautiful buildings gone. Let me tell you a little about the creator. His name is John Bader. This is called Market Street Cafe, and it's a color lithograph on paper. And he's an American photorealist, and his work aims to chronicle the disappearing aspects of American culture. In the 1950s, when he went to school in Alabama, and then he would visit his family in Atlanta, he became fascinated by the small towns and what's called vernacular architecture. And what that is a modest style of building that is specific to a region and period. And it relies on the use of local materials and knowledge to construct buildings. And it's usually done without the supervision of an architect. So that was new to me also, so I thought I'd share it.
So where is this photograph from? What
It does not say, but or I did not find it in my research. So maybe if you research a little more, you might be able to find it. But it was, you know, somewhere in his travels, he decided to pursue a full-time career as an artist, and he left the advertising field, which he had been in after graduation. And he currently lives and works in Nashville, Tennessee. And his works are in the Smithsonian American Art Museum in Washington, D.C., as well as the Indianapolis Museum of Art, the Cleveland Museum of Art, among others. So, any questions? Comments? Shall we move on to the next one? Okay, let's move on. Okay, let's take 10 seconds to quietly look at this artwork.
Okay.
Okay, what do you see going on in this artwork?
Oh, I like this a lot. It looks like a park outside of a city in the background there, maybe a bridge going by in the background as well. But I do like pencil and pen and ink and all that, the black and whites. And I just love the way they did the trees, so realistic, and looks like the place we need during this pandemic to go throw your chair out and read a book.
I also like the shading and of the clouds in the sky. I agree with Sharon, the pencil and drawing, whatever medium it's used, it's done so nicely.
I agree with the
You
shading.
notice anything particular about the shading?
Well, I'm looking at the clouds up in the sky, and it's showing a darkening of the clouds.
And then the shading has a balance in the foreground, on the ground there, the lines in the ground.
Yes.
And yeah, it kind of balances off. And the trees look old to me because they're so tall and big, and they're not little saplings. So it definitely looks like the trees have been there for a while.
I love the contrast of the sketchiness of the background and the detail of the foreground and of the sky, like you said, the clouds. That to me just makes it interesting. You can see a really strong, I'm into depth of field, and you can even see little cars in the background. Background. Now I'm trying to read the name of the city on it, and I can't get it. Something city. On the bottom in the corner.
I'll zoom in on that one moment.
I put a magnifying up to it.
Yeah.
Looks like maybe Park and City or something.
Maybe, yeah.
Park City, yes.
Panama.
Park and City.
Maybe Panama? No, not Panama.
Well, what city do you think it is?
It's not New York.
So why don't you think it's New York?
Well, I could be wrong because I can't well, the bridge, I know all the bridges, but I'm trying to think, well, what part of any park that would be, hilly like that and have that view in the background. And now maybe it's coming to me, it might be the north end of Riverside Park, and it could be the George Washington Bridge in the background. I mean, now I'm making up a story. I'm storytelling. Maybe, but I can't think of any other place. If I think of areas on the East River, I can't visualize or think of any park like that with a bridge in the background. And it looks like a storm is coming in.
What makes you think a storm is coming in?
The clouds.
Clouds on the right
Or maybe
there,
it's
yeah.
leaving.
My first impression is San Francisco, and I can't remember the name of the Golden Gate Bridge. There is a big park there, and I can't remember the name of it now.
Golden Gate Park, I
Golden
think.
Gate Park.
Is it? Oh, okay.
And what makes you think it's San Francisco?
It just had that feeling. I don't know. The trees kind of made me hesitant to say that, but just something about that expanse of the bridge was suggesting that to me. And unfortunately, I'm not a New Yorker, so I didn't have another reference point to tie into that.
I could see where it could be San Francisco, even though I've been there, but I've never lived there. But it could very well be that. I think, in fact, it probably is more San Francisco than New York, because I think the buildings would be taller.
Mm-hmm.
So we zoom in on the bottom right next to the tree there. Are those garages or boats? They look like two structures on the bottom right, to the right of the tree. Yeah, I don't know. Or maybe they're just buildings. Okay. Thank you.
Buildings.
And there's a street with people on it.
And it's a hill. You see, it's a hill, so it could be San
San
Francisco.
Francisco.
Yeah.
That's right. That looks like it is going up. It is a hill. And the way the car is.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else want to comment on this artwork?
The fire escape meant something to me because I don't live in an area where the buildings are so big we have fire escapes.
What do you think
fire
of those
escapes on buildings in San Francisco? I know there are in New York, on old buildings, or there were. But what, Carol, since you're familiar with San Francisco, is that possible in there?
I don't think the buildings were as high. I mean, I was a tourist there several times, but
Yeah, same.
I don't remember seeing that, because that's something to me is always noticeable when you see all that iron on the outside of the building and the stairs. I don't remember
Barbara?
seeing that.
I was thinking it doesn't really matter so much where it is. It's a respite in the middle of the city. It's the use of a park in the middle of a very metropolitan place, which is, there's the bridges. It looked like it even can be a train trestle. It's a very busy atmosphere, but here is nature in the middle of all of the city. It doesn't matter which city it is.
Yeah.
Yes,
Although
yes.
we'd like to know.
Well,
You're
before I
fantasizing.
I have a few more questions here for you. Anybody else want to comment on it before I go on? Okay. How was the effect of the foreground different than the background in this etching?
For me, I was surprised to see the background because I was expecting it more native, more woody forestry. It looks kind of, I'm thinking Oregon coast or those areas. And it was surprising to see, oh no, I'm in an urban area.
So you're seeing a juxtaposition between the background and the foreground.
Yeah.
And the other, go ahead.
Even though the background is much lighter, the geometry of it is so much different than the foreground. The foreground is soft and it's plant-like, obviously, leaves and things like that, and hills, where the background is geometric buildings, and makes it very, very easy to differentiate the two. But I really like the use also of the very darks in the trees. That really brings out a wonderful, I don't know, texture to the whole piece. I wondered if that's charcoal, which is, kind of hard. Charcoal is kind of a messy medium to use, but I know a lot of people do use it for just that reason, to have the contrast.
Look at this face.
Barbara comments in the chat, she sees a face in the tree on the right. Okay, let's take a look.
Barbara?
Over here?
Is it
Oh,
the one up, is it up on top?
Barbara, you can
Like a
unmute.
silhouette?
Can you unmute, Barbara, and then explain?
Okay. It's kind of parallel with the top of the house.
Over here?
A little higher up. Yeah,
Oh, like a profile almost?
Yeah.
So is this the eye?
No, the eye is further down.
This? Here?
Yeah.
There's also one, I see one up on the left of the same tree, but up almost to the center on top.
Up
Oh, I
here?
see it.
Here.
I see that too.
Yeah,
Yes.
there. Well, you can't tell my,
Like a-
there to the, where you put the pointer, just go to the
Yeah.
left, right?
Yeah.
There. That looks like a silhouette.
It does,
A
Bill.
little to the right of that, I see a silhouette also. There, I see two eyes, a nose, and mouth.
That would be fun to do, to go into all the different objects that are created by a tree. And in this artwork, I just noticed a Godzilla on the right above the house there with its mouth open. A little bit high, right there. A little high, right? No, a little lower, right there. Side view of Godzilla. That would really be an interesting thing to do, to see all the different things we can see in this.
It's like cloud reading.
And then there's people in the bottom center on the street near the car.
Oh,
So-
yes, look
So
at that.
Sylvie, this one threw your theme off with no people in it.
I know, I did not notice that because I saw this online. Well, it's the age of the computer. We'll just either erase it or change the name of the topic here.
Still no people in the park, though.
Yes,
No people.
yes,
Okay, there's no people.
The tree branches kind of all blend together. Like if you count the number of barks or trunks, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, there's like 6. But when you first look at it, I only saw like 3 trees because of the way they're kind of together.
Right, right. Yeah. And I think, Sharon, you brought up the use of shape here, how in the foreground, the shapes are more natural shapes as opposed to the background, where they're much more geometric shapes.
Right.
And
Man-made structures as opposed to nature.
yes, yes. And also, I found 3 levels here. Did anybody else see 3 levels here?
3 levels.
Yeah. When I looked at it, after a while, in the foreground, we see the darker trees and the whole area there is darker. Then the next area is a lighter shade of gray where the buildings are. And then the third, the bridge is even lighter. So he's sort of gotten 3 levels in there.
Okay. So we call that foreground, middle ground, and background.
Background.
Yes.
And background, doesn't background usually get lighter?
Yeah, that's how he creates the perspective there. Okay, let's talk about this artist a little bit. This is a very interesting artist.
Oh, good. Now
His
that's
name is,
Park and City. Oh,
It is.
yeah, his name is Isaac Friedlander, and this is New York City, by the way, for those of you who are wondering. And I think you caught it. It's the view, probably Riverside Park, looking
North
out.
Riverside Park, yeah. Towards
Yep,
looking towards the GW.
Yes, if you ever drive into New York in the future, those of you who haven't been, you'll notice that there's an area where it's pretty hilly, which you don't expect. Suddenly you're in this area where it's very hilly, and this is the view from that area. I'm wondering, well, let me go on with the creator of this. It's an etching on paper, and his name is Friedlander, Isaac Friedlander, and he was born in Latvia. And he was very outspoken against the Tsar and the Tsarist type of government. So at 16 years old, he was arrested and sentenced to death. And he was in prison for 4 years, and somehow through his artwork there and people being impressed with it, he got out after 4 years. His mother was worried that he'd start doing it again, the protesting. So she sold her jewelry. She sold her jewelry to have enough money to send him off to Italy, where he went to college there. He took some art courses there. And then he came to America in 1929. Just give me 1 minute. My poor cat is dying to come in. Okay.
Well, while she's not there, I was going to say that was my grandfather's story, except he came straight to the United States. But he spit on a picture of the Tsar, and he was forced to leave, and his family gathered money and sent him to the United States.
Oh my gosh.
Well, anyway, before he came to the United States, Tsarist Russia was over, so he went back to Latvia and then came to the United States in 1929, and he was very affected by the Depression during that time. And so a lot of his prints show the suffering of people during the Depression. Then later on, before World War II started, he became very interested in what was going on in Europe at that time. And he started creating etchings and woodcuts of the horrors that were going on in Europe at that time. That earned him his fame. He was also a commercial artist. And then later he also worked on, he was very aware of people like Black people who were being, relegated to a different part of society. So you can find his work doing that. I thought he was an interesting character, and that's it. I hope you enjoyed. Any questions about any of these?
I don't have a question, but Sylvia, it was wonderful. But Sandy, did you say you were from Montana?
Oh, Sandy, you're muted.
I live in Missoula, Montana, and Asheville Art Museum came to our town this week to give us a slow art tour, and it was really fun to bring you all here.
Wow.
With our docents, is that correct, Sandy?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I did like
We
a
had a
docent
teaching.
exchange. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so we're going to do more in our town with our two museums with slow art. This is a fabulous way to get people together.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a TV program right now, I don't know if you've heard of it or get it, called Big Sky, and it takes place in Montana, and they just show the scenery is amazing. So,
Sandy,
Yeah, we're really fortunate.
Sandy, did you say you're Missoula or?
Yeah, Missoula.
Missoula?
Yeah.
Because there was an article the other day in, I think it was the New York Times, about Bozeman being a college town, and it's becoming very popular.
And expensive, and so
Yes.
is Missoula. It's really horrible. Who can afford it? I'm not the young people anymore.
Well, it's like what happened in Oregon. All the Californians got priced out.
Or
of
Asheville.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
They're
Asheville.
going far away.
Well, let me tell you one funny thing. Our symphony conductor named Darko Budarek is now your symphony conductor. You
Oh,
guys bought him
wow.
from us because you're wealthier than we are, even though you're the same size.
And Darko has done some virtual programs with us too, through the symphony, some coloring and cocktails and other things. So we're happy to have him in Asheville.
I think you will just grow with him. He is such a personality. We kept him for 13 years.
Wow.
Wow.
Mm.
And many women will have crushes on him, let me tell you.
And I think your patrons will love the Slow Art Friday.
Oh,
They were
yeah.
wonderful during the pandemic for us all, and I'm a new docent, and I've done a couple, and it's really interesting how you get to hear so many stories about art piece and about artwork. And so I think you will love doing slow art at your museum. Good luck.
I agree. Thanks,
Thank you,
Barbara.
thank you.
And Sylvie, thank
Oh, I was going to say, even as a docent, I learned so much from the comments on the artwork.
Absolutely. Well, Sylvie, thank you so much for making this selection of artworks and leading us in a wonderful conversation today. And thank you all for participating and also creating a wonderful conversation about these artworks. I hope that you'll join us next week on May 21st as our docent, Megan Pyle, leads us in a discussion called On the Waterfront. Until then, have a wonderful week and hope to see you again on Friday.